Isabel sat quietly at the dining table, the soft morning light streaming through the kitchen window, casting a golden glow on the oak surface. Steam rose from her coffee cup, curling into the air, but the tension in the room was thick and unrelenting. Across from her, Liam, her husband, paced back and forth, each heavy step on the wooden floorboards, amplifying the unease between them. The argument from the night before still lingered like an unshakable storm cloud. Once again, it was about Olivia, Liam's younger sister. Once again, she had asked for money. This time, she wanted Isabel's credit card for a so-called emergency, which Isabel knew was likely just another reckless shopping spree. When Isabel refused, it set off a chain reaction that had led to Liam's fury. Taking a slow sip of coffee, Isabel tried to maintain her composure as she finally broke the silence. Liam, we need to talk about this rationally. We can't keep enabling Olivia's reckless spending. It's not fair to us, and honestly, it's not helping her either. Liam stopped pacing, turning to face her, his expression clouded with frustration. Not fair? His voice was sharp. She's my sister, Isabel. Family helps each other. How can you be so selfish? The word selfish hit Isabel like a slap. She inhaled deeply, forcing herself to stay calm. Helping doesn't mean allowing her to take advantage of us. We've given her so much already, and nothing has changed. She needs to learn how to stand on her own. Liam's jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. You wouldn't understand, he snapped. You don't have siblings. You don't know what it's like to have that kind of responsibility. His words stung, but Isabel refused to waver. I understand responsibility, Liam. And right now, our responsibility is to protect our own future. We can't keep draining ourselves just to clean up Olivia's mistakes. For a moment, Liam seemed to hesitate, as if her words were finally sinking in. But then, just as quickly, his eyes darkened again. You will give Olivia your credit card, he said, his voice low and firm. She's coming over later today, and you're going to hand it over with a smile. Do you understand me? A chill ran down Isabel's spine at his tone, but she squared her shoulders and met his gaze without flinching. No, Liam, I won't do that. She had no idea what his reaction would be. But deep down, she knew this was the moment that everything would change. Liam's expression darkened at Isabel's defiance. His eyes, once filled with warmth and love, now burned with resentment. He took a slow step toward her, his fists clenching at his sides. You don't get to decide this, Isabel, he growled. This is our money, our family. Olivia needs us. No, Liam, Isabel replied, standing her ground. She needs to take responsibility for herself. We can't keep bailing her out while she refuses to change. The tension in the air thickened. Isabel's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't back down. She had spent years compromising, bending to Liam's demands for the sake of peace, for the illusion of a happy marriage. But something in her had shifted. This wasn't just about Olivia. It was about control. It was about respect. Liam exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You're unbelievable, he muttered under his breath before turning away. He walked to the counter, gripping the edge so tightly his knuckles turned white. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Without warning, he grabbed his coffee mug and hurled it across the kitchen. Isabel barely had time to react before the scorching liquid splashed across her cheek and neck. She gasped as the pain seared through her skin, her body jolting in shock. The mug shattered against the floor, sending porcelain shards flying in all directions. For a moment, neither of them moved. Isabel stood frozen, her breath shallow, her hands trembling, as she instinctively touched her burning cheek. Liam's chest heaved as he stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, as if realizing what he had just done, he scoffed. Maybe next time, you'll learn to listen. His voice was low, filled with something even colder than anger, indifference. The finality of that sentence hit Isabel harder than the scalding coffee. She had spent years convincing herself that the yelling, the gaslighting, The manipulation weren't that bad, but this was different. A slow realization settled over her. She had to leave. Her hands, still trembling, reached for a dish towel to wipe her face. The sting of the burn was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. Liam turned on his heel and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard that the framed photos on the wall rattled. Isabel stood in the silence, staring at the broken mug, at the mess that mirrored the wreckage of her marriage. She had always believed that love meant sacrifice, that if she was patient, if she loved Liam enough, he would change. But now, as she stood alone in that kitchen, coffee dripping from the table, she knew this wasn't love. It was time to walk away. Isabel stood frozen for a moment, her breath still unsteady after what had just happened. She gently touched the burn on her cheek, the searing pain reminding her that this wasn't a nightmare. Liam had really done that. Not just harsh words, not just blame. This was real violence. She glanced around the kitchen, the place that had once been the heart of their home. The place where she and Liam had cooked together, where they had laughed over silly things. But now it was nothing more than an empty space filled with fear. The shattered pieces of ceramic on the floor looked like fragments of herself, broken long ago. She just hadn't realized it. Isabel took a deep breath, forcing herself to move. She couldn't stay. If she didn't leave now, she might never get the chance. She walked into the bedroom, pulled a suitcase from under the bed, and unzipped it with trembling hands. She grabbed a few sets of clothes from the closet and shoved them into the bag hastily. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't allow herself to hesitate. No second guessing, no looking back. She grabbed her wallet, phone, and car keys, then stopped at the dresser. Inside one of the drawers was an envelope of cash she had been secretly saving for months. An unconscious habit that was now her lifeline. She stuffed it into her purse, a flicker of relief cutting through her fear. Then a noise came from the front door. Isabel froze. Liam was back. She held her breath, her eyes locked on the doorknob. The sound of his keys turning in the lock echoed through the suffocating silence. He can't see me packing. If he realizes I'm leaving, who knows what he'll do? Without thinking, Isabel darted into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Pressing her ear against the wooden panel, she listened, her pulse hammering in her throat. The front door creaked open. Footsteps thudded against the hardwood floor. "Isabel?" Liam's voice called out, suspicious. She squeezed her eyes shut, silently praying. All she needed was time, just enough time to escape before it was too late. Isabel held her breath, listening carefully as Liam stepped out of his office to take a phone call. This was her chance. She moved quickly but cautiously, grabbing the small bag she had hidden behind the closet. Just a few clothes, some cash she had secretly saved for months, and the cheap burner phone she had bought behind Liam's back. Everything she needed to disappear without a trace. Her heart pounded as her hand rested on the doorknob. If Liam caught her, the consequences would be unimaginable. But she had no other choice. She turned the knob gently and stepped into the hallway. Liam's angry voice echoed from his office. He was too focused on his call. Good. She slipped out the front door, sprinting across the yard without daring to look back. The taxi she had called in advance was waiting at the corner. As she slid into the back seat, she exhaled shakily, her body trembling from the adrenaline rush. "To the nearest bus station," she murmured to the driver. The car pulled away, carrying her far from the house she once thought was home, far from the man she once loved but now feared. Clutching her phone tightly, she scrolled through her contacts until she found the one person she could trust, Claire. She pressed call, gripping the fabric of her dress to stop her hands from shaking. "Isabel." Claire's voice came through, filled with concern. "Claire." Her voice broke. "I need your help." A brief silence, then Claire answered immediately, without hesitation. "Where are you? I'm coming." For the first time in what felt like forever, Isabel felt a glimmer of hope. She had escaped, and now she would find herself again. Isabel arrived at Claire's house, exhausted but resolute. The moment Claire opened the door, she pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering, "You're safe now." Isabel, trembling from the adrenaline of her escape, could only nod, grateful beyond words. Once inside, Claire wasted no time. She handed Isabel a warm cup of tea and pulled out her laptop. "We need a plan," she said firmly. Together, they searched for the best divorce lawyer, finally settling on someone experienced in handling abusive spouses. Claire dialed the number immediately, setting up an urgent consultation for the next morning. Meanwhile, Isabel's phone vibrated relentlessly on the table. Liam's name flashed across the screen over and over. Calls, voicemails, furious text messages. "Where the hell are you? Come home now. You think you can leave me? You'll regret this." Claire glanced at the phone and then at Isabel. "Block him," she suggested. Isabel hesitated, staring at the screen. Then, with a deep breath, she tapped the button. Blocked. It was a small act, but it felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Tomorrow they would go to the lawyer. Tomorrow the real fight would begin. But tonight, for the first time in years, Isabel felt like she could breathe. Isabel took a deep breath, gripping Claire's hand as they walked into the lawyer's office. The weight of what she was about to do pressed heavily on her chest, but she knew there was no turning back. Across the room, Liam sat stiffly, his face an unreadable mask, but Isabel knew him too well. Behind that calm facade, he was seething. He hadn't expected her to leave, hadn't believed she would ever stand up to him. And now, she was about to take everything he had tried to control away from him. Her lawyer, Mr. Dawson, cleared his throat and began. "Mrs. Carter has filed for divorce on the grounds of emotional and financial abuse. We have documented evidence of coercion, financial manipulation, and controlling behavior." Liam scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "This is ridiculous," he sneered. "Isabel, come on. You know this isn't necessary. You're being dramatic." She met his gaze without flinching. "No, Liam. What's ridiculous is that I spent years making excuses for you, that I convinced myself your control was love. That ends today." His jaw tightened. "And what? You think you can just leave? You think you can win?" "I don't need to win," she said, voice steady. "I just need to be free." Liam's lawyer tried to interject, but Mr. Dawson was ready. "We have full records of Mr. Carter's financial activities, including his use of joint funds without Mrs. Carter's consent. Additionally, we have statements from witnesses who have observed his controlling behavior." Liam's eyes darkened, but he stayed silent. He was calculating, realizing he was backed into a corner. Isabel didn't stop. "You wanted me to believe I had no power, Liam, but I do. I rebuilt my life without you, and I will never let you manipulate me again." For the first time, Liam looked unsure. The confidence he always wielded like a weapon faltered. After hours of negotiations, the divorce was finalized in Isabel's favor. She got her fair share, her freedom, and, most importantly, her peace. As she walked out of the office, Claire by her side, the weight on her chest finally lifted. She had done it. She had faced the man who tried to break her, and won. And for the first time in years, she was free. A few months later, Isabel stood at the door of her new apartment, taking a deep breath. The afternoon breeze brushed past her, carrying a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She had done it. She had walked away from her toxic marriage, faced Liam, and reclaimed her life. The divorce wasn't just a legal decree, it was a declaration of her freedom. Claire walked into the living room, setting down 2 glasses of wine on the table. "Cheers," she said with a bright smile. "Our girl has officially escaped the darkness." Isabel laughed, raising her glass to clink with Claire's. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice filled with determination. Her phone vibrated with a message from her lawyer. "All paperwork is finalized. Liam is no longer a part of your life. Congratulations, Isabel." She stared at the screen for a long moment before gently setting the phone down. No more fear, no more haunting memories, no more chains holding her back. The next day, she walked into a small cafe where she had landed her first freelance editing job. The cafe owner, an older woman with kind eyes, smiled at her. "Welcome back, Isabel." For the first time, she felt completely in control of her life. She was no longer the woman living in the shadow of a manipulator. She was Isabel, strong, independent, and ready for a future full of possibilities. She took a sip of her coffee, savoring the warmth that spread through her. Outside, the sky was a brilliant blue, the sun shining brightly over the road ahead. A new life awaited her, and this time it was entirely hers. In life, no one has the right to take away your freedom, happiness, or self-respect, even the person you once loved the most. Isabel learned that love does not mean unconditional sacrifice, and family does not mean enduring suffering. She spent years in a controlling marriage, believing that if she tried hard enough, things would change. But the truth is, a relationship is only worth keeping when there is respect, equality, and genuine love. When those elements disappear, leaving is not running away, it is liberation. The greatest lesson Isabel realized is this: she has the right to choose her own happiness. No one can define her worth except herself. When she dared to let go of the past, she opened the door to a new future, a future she could control. Isabel's story proves that no matter how much pain we endure, as long as we have the courage to stand up, life will always offer us a chance to start over, stronger and happier. If you enjoy deep, emotional, and meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new update. Your support is the motivation that drives us to keep bringing you powerful stories. Once again, thank you for being here, and see you in the next story.